Hello. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for coming out here today. Despite the weather, we're very, very welcome to have you here tonight. Happy Martin Luther King Day. I'm very excited to have this discussion with these very, very, very great people in front of us, young, great people, entrepreneurs, etc. Thank you for taking the time, for coming. Welcome you to here for this event. Would anyone like anything they would like to share tonight with the group before we get started? No? All right, well, thank you for coming tonight, and I hope you enjoyed this discussion.
All right, wonderful. Well, again, I would like to just say thank you for coming tonight. This group of young people across the front here is very special to me and very special to our community. Just some quick housekeeping notes. There is food. Please help yourself. You are not tied to your chair. The bathrooms are right behind you here. If you need to take care of yourself, please take care of yourself and govern accordingly. We would like to welcome you tonight to this think tank. In our community, we see a lot of things that need to be worked on, and a lot of times we always say what's wrong, but we never come with solutions. And I feel we have a good group of people here that have solutions and ways that we can work together to bring our city where we need it to be. And I would like to introduce myself as one half of the group and the new group, Herring Consulting, LLC. I'm Mika Herring. I will be one of your hosts for tonight. Number two.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Kyron Herring. I'm the second half of Herring Consulting, LLC, and I will be one of the panelists tonight as well.
Good evening, my name is Emily Johnson, and you already heard from Tanisha. We're with the Education and Economic Justice Coalition. Our goal and mission is to convene a group of folks in Battle Creek throughout the year to talk about ways we can create and bring transformation to our economic and education system. Thank you.
All right, so we are going to go ahead and get started with our panel. Please excuse them as they chew. We're going to start with Daniel. So everybody will get a chance to respond to the question. And the first question is?
Is this mic's on, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, can we do a round of intros first?
Oh yeah, that would be
Okay, awesome.
Sorry.
So hi, I'm Bee. I'm the executive director of the Art and Culture Collective with Battle Creek. We're a new nonprofit. We've been on the ground for about a year now. But yeah, everything, trying to build resources to protect the arts here in Battle Creek. So that is me. I also am a co-founder of the Black Sheep music label, the fat guy over there. But yeah, happy to be here.
Hello, I am Jade Golden. I am the Marketing and Promotion Specialist for the Small Business Development Office within the city of Battle Creek. I'm homegrown, was about like 10 ago. I'm happy to be here. Good evening, everybody. My name is Janisha Morris. I am the Ward 2 City Commissioner. And in addition to that, I just have a passion for community and specifically a passion for youth, which you can tell by my day job and my weekend work as well.
My name is James McGee. I'm the founder of Black Sheep. We are in our 15th year being around as a Black-owned business. So, and I also do a lot of community work. And thank you for having me.
Hey everybody. My name is Devon Wilson. I'm a farmer. I've been farming for about 11 years. I'm the founder of Sunlight Gardens and our mini grocery store pharmacy. And so basically, I'm just on a mission to really increase access to local food and inspire the next generation of farmers. So we need more.
Once again, I'm Kyron Herring. I am the other half of Herring Consulting LLC. As
well as a racial healing practitioner with the Battle Creek Coalition of Truth, Racial Healing, and Transformation.
Okay, hi guys, my name is Tanaya Reese. I'm a student at Kellogg Community College, and I'm also serving on the Board of Trustees for Student Rep. Thank you.
We give a round of applause for our panelists tonight. Before we hear from our panelists, I just want to set the room. Tonight is more about listening and learning. And a lot of times it has been my experience that many individuals will look at our panelists today and call them young people. And even though they're younger than most of us that are here today, the connotations around that is that they're young, they're aspiring, they don't know anything, they can't contribute, right? And the most that leaders get from them is a couple ideas that they take and implement without their partnership. And so we want tonight to be around, it's going in and out up here, can you guys hear me up there? Tonight to be around, how do I as a community member take that attitude and put it aside and learn from experts in our community, younger people that have something to contribute, and younger people that have wisdom and knowledge that will help us to move our community along. So we have 3 questions that we have presented to our panelists tonight, and we want our audience to sit back to some extent and glean from the expertise and see what we can learn tonight. And while we will have time for question and answer, what we really want to focus our question and answering around is clarifying questions. How can you better understand the wisdom that they have shared with us tonight? This is the first of many we hope to have throughout the year. So we hope to take this wisdom and this learning, and with the permission of those experts that are sharing tonight, use that information to move our community forward. We're good? Awesome.
All right, so I'll start with the first question. The first question is, how can we create a system of equitable opportunities in education and economics in Battle Creek? And we're going to start with me.
This is a really big question, first of all. I appreciate the question, though. I feel like what popped into my head immediately, I don't know if I'm speaking correctly into this mic, is that I think there's a gap of knowledge in our younger generations. For us to know what to do, we have to know what's happened, and I feel like a lot of individuals in this community are really good at gatekeeping good information, things that we don't necessarily know, and they assume that we do. And again, this isn't a shot at older folks, it's just we have to be better at communicating information, vital information, so that if we do have innovative ideas, if we do have that spark to want to change something, we know what we're working with. We know what's happened, in the past 15, 20 years. And I also think that we have to change our scope of what economic development looks like, because until now, it's just been industrial things in this community. I think we need to kind of change our lens on that.
Okay. We got the questions kind of ahead of time, so I was going through a bunch of things, so I have no reason why from. If that's all right with y'all. Speak up. Can y'all hear me without this? No. No? With this? Yeah? Okay. Okay. But with the question, and Megan mentioned economic development, but one thing that needs to happen is community engagement and fostering events in which we're all together, no matter what generation that it is. And this is, there also will be another question that touches on this, but when it comes to bringing in the new, you have to respect the old, and you have to actually respect the old, but also not forget the old, because we got here in some way and somehow. portrayed new, I think older generations have to also be accepting of letting go of the past. It's hard to do because I'm only almost 30 and I'm already like, dang, back in the day, you know, like that's how I am now. So I can only imagine how it is for like, you know, all of my older peers and things like that. It's hard to be like, I'm not getting rid of how I was doing things. But we have to be open to that because that's the only way that we actually will see change and be able to implement new things within the community. So like we said, this was a really big question. So I chose to approach this question based on my own personal experiences, and those experiences being that with the City Commission. And in my experience with the City Commission, I have learned that bureaucracy is slow. And to get things done, it takes a long time. And that's something that I didn't quite understand before I was on the other side of the table, being in a position to impact these decisions that are being made by the city. And so I guess I would just say to embed ourselves within the culture to change the systems that already exist. So there are a lot of systems that already impact our economic and educational development. And to recreate those systems as a whole is not something that will happen overnight. It's not something that will happen in a few months. So to embed ourselves within those systems and be the ones who are using our voices to impact that change, I think is the straightest route that we have to be able to level the playing field and make it more equitable for us in education and economics both.
Hello again. I'm loud. I like that. Again, big question, and I'm going to speak from my anecdotal experience traveling and navigating through this type of question. I think the way we change this is definitely changing how we view those seeking those equitable opportunities within education and economics within the city here. For example, I've been in rooms where people are very aware that I'm an artist and I make raunchy music, and I've been questioned on my ability to do this, that, and the other based off of that. I've been in rooms with leaders who have 90K plus salaries, leading nonprofit orgs and such, who have told me that they were surprised at how well I speak, and actually I'm more smarter than they thought I was. These were black folks. So let me also start there. I'm real close to writing a book calling He Called Me Nigger, and it's going to be about a black person viewing another black person, and I've read a book that's similar to this, and I feel like we have to really change this condescending vibe on how we look at each other, because at this point, the line is getting blurred between how I feel a white person views me and how I feel a black person views me. I've been in rooms where white people have been more willing to help me out and trust me with my vision more than black folks who, yes, I understand having to earn your keep within an economy and put in the work, but again, I've been doing this for 15 years. I started my business when I was a sophomore, before we were doing this small business trend saying, let's put them in the newspaper now, let's handle money. I was doing this dead broke with not a cent to my name and finding resources to make it happen. So when I'm in those type of rooms and it's my own folk looking at me, to answer that question, I say we need to start trusting each other more, doing the community engaging work, and looking at each other and trusting folks. I know there's a brother in here, I won't say his name, that applied for a position that I think he definitely deserved to get seen for, and didn't get seen because he's a young black man, so they didn't want to see him. So we gotta really do better in this area, and that was also a black org that didn't want to see him.
Can you guys hear me on this one? Good. Yeah, no, it's a great question. I think my take on it is I really believe in open source information. I believe information should be open source and available to everyone. And I feel like if that is the reality, that takes away a lot of the gatekeeping and miscommunication or lack of getting information out in the community. I think the more we can just really showcase the pathways to get funding and resources and letting our youth lead. I really think that's important. Being confident, allowing the youth to lead. When I was coming up, I was a part of, man, what is it called, Jeanette? It was the Battle Creek, like, we had like a youth advisory board, thank you. So, being a part of that youth advisory board was very eye-opening for me, and it allowed me to feel confident in myself to create something and be a leader in something. And so, yeah, I think it's important to just, sometimes if you've been, and I'm not talking to anybody in this room, but you know, if people that are in positions of power, it's important to step out the way sometimes. Let the youth get involved, let them lead. And again, just open source that information. Tell people, how did you do this? How did you? I have a lot of people that will sometimes, almost like it's like a flex on me, right? Show me their house or tell me how many businesses they have, how many nonprofits they have. And for me, it's like, okay, show me. Thank you for visually showing me, but give me the knowledge to get it to where you have gotten. And I think that's the way that we can really make things more equitable.
Wow, y'all all saying some pretty good things. Y'all making it tough for those down the line on the panel. Okay.
Any other end next time.
Right, we'll start off with this. But, yes to what everybody else was saying, but thinking on this question, a lot came to mind. One of the things that popped up immediately that I've been thinking about for the last month is about mentorship and what that looks like in this community. I met a woman who was, I would say she's probably part of the baby boomer generation. She was very accomplished. I did not know that. But what I did know is that when she asked me what were my goals and what did I see myself doing, she immediately shot what I said down, right? And I think it's a telling sign of the older generation. Nobody take offense, but like our black people had to fight to get into these spaces. So a lot of time they still want to navigate in the constraints of this system. They want to work the system, right? Me, I want to abolish it. I want to let it burn. I need it. It's rotten from the root of it, and it needs to be uprooted and discarded completely. But she didn't like that response. She didn't like that response at all. And she was very quickly to put me down on what I was trying to say no, you have to go about this way. I've done it for this many years. And I'm like, yet, you're still not at a place that I want to be at in that field. And it was really discouraging, but when she mentioned that what she had was mentees and what she offered her mentors, I was like, oh, that changed the whole conversation. I feel like there should be open sources for information of how to get ahead. And there should also be room for, okay, I see how you did it. That got you where you're at. Things can also be done differently. Or like the system that you were working and put all these years into, nobody's trying to discredit the work. All we're saying is that what worked for you in the 20th century is not where we're at and where we're going to be at in the 21st century. It's going to need some complete turnaround on how we go about things, our solutions, what that looks like. And so where do we find that happy medium where we say, okay, this is your tried and true, this is what you tried, this is where it's got you, while also acknowledging that our economy is looking completely different. This is not the Reagan 80s, right, where you could just work at McDonald's and find yourself a house after a few years of work. This is not that. So how we're going to go about things is going to be completely different. We're not fighting for a spot. And a lot of people in our generation, they think it's laziness, and it's really that we're not fighting to prove ourselves anymore. You're either going to recognize us or we're going to create our own avenue. And I just feel like there should be more, not just discussion, but more opportunity to learn from on both ends when it comes with those who are older and younger to go about what's going to happen. But there also has to be that let go of control of, yes, I recognize that, I might not be the most qualified or certified, even though I've had all these years of experience. This is a whole different game now. So that was just my thoughts when I read that question.
I like your responses because I don't know how to respond to it now. I would honestly say we need to create like lasting relationships between the youth and the older generation. I'm sorry. I just feel like whenever we try to have a event within our community, we keep that bond that we have, whatever we're contributing or like we're collaborating with, we keep that bond at that event. And I feel like, I just feel like we just need to create that space, that open space for youth.
Thank you. Can we give a round of applause to our panelists for the first question? I appreciate all of the responses, and before we move to our second question, just as a footnote, if you have a question, we're going to have some time at the end for our audience today. But before we move to our second question, and this is open to all of the panelists, and don't feel pressure to answer this question because you didn't get this in advance, but we recognize that the first question was very broad, and I'm wondering, do you have any thoughts around something that is more narrow when we're looking at creating a system that is equitable in education and economics? Is there something more lower to the ground? Is there a low-hanging piece of fruit that we could grasp on tonight, something that we can take away that's in your knowledge set, knowing that this question is very broad, it's very big? Is there something else?
I have an idea. I would love to see some, what are they called? Like hard skills and soft skills. I would love to see some more like, you know, open to the public, readily available. Hey, you want to work on how to, you know, really tackle a resume, right? A lot of young people, if you ask us now, okay, pull out your resume, like raise your hands of anybody. If somebody asks you right now to pull out your resume, is it resume ready, like for a new job, up to date, 2024 ready? Raise of hands, anybody? Okay, but like, you know, normally everybody's hands should be up because you never know. I would love to see opportunity for people to come out and learn about resume building, or maybe they learn how to produce. Okay, is this better? Oh, this is a lot better. Okay. But yeah, so like resumes, how to do certain things that like I feel like would look good for the future, or maybe other skills. Maybe that's not even related to that. Maybe things like, I want to take like a sewing class. That's a skill that I feel like I can watch all the YouTube videos in the world, but that's a skill that I know that there's probably many older women that's sitting at home that just has, and maybe their grandchildren or their children weren't interested in it and they just do it in their spare time. Maybe learning that, maybe learning gardening, maybe learning how to can your own vegetables. I've been begging my grandmama for years to learn how to can some vegetables. I'm gonna learn this year. But I would love to see a more open forum of, hey, you know, you don't have to know somebody because here's somebody who knows that is willing to teach you. And just, it could be a variety of things, maybe things that we no longer see. Like, I don't know, like how many people know how to hem their own pants anymore? I don't know why my mind keeps going to sewing, but you know, that's something I want to learn. And I feel like if there was more open opportunity for, you know, convenings of here, learn this skill, learn this, learn that, you know, I feel like we could also, that would help like bridging the gap and, you know, building those bonds that you were talking about between the older generation and the younger generation, because there is skills that can be utilized and should be carried down and passed on. And a lot of times those skills get passed on within families, but it can also, community is a family too. So that would be skills that could just be passed down to other community members with interest. Or maybe, I don't know, how to balance a checkbook. Again, I don't know. I would like to learn, you know, budgeting, you know, or how like a lot of young people, if we're trying to cook, how to budget, like, you know, for meal prepping for a week, right? How to cook for a large group. Those are things that, like, you know, you don't always think of until you're in a situation you're like, oh, I need to find somebody to do that. Those are skills that can be shared, you know, very community-based, very much skills that our ancestors for sure were passing down to each other. I would love to like have just some opportunities to learn skills from older generations in this community.
I love that. I definitely can't have my pants, but it's okay. Yeah, okay. One thing that I was going to mention while Kyron was talking, while Kyron was talking, I feel like the opposite also has to happen, which is, and this is more my train of thought with economic growth and the future, is that we know what the future looks like. We know what's coming down the pipeline. We know how AI is going to work. We know how, we're very involved in these conversations. To a lot of you all or others, that may be a scary thing to think about, which is like fair, right? I think we're all a little nervous too, to be honest. But I think tapping in with us to understand, like, hey, we kind of know a little bit more knowledge about what's coming into the future. How about we talk about it? How about we discuss it so that it's not scary? Like, my dad is in his 60s. I'm like, I don't want to talk to him about AI, but I can. And he would be willing to listen. He's probably not going to understand it, but I think it's a valuable conversation, especially in the fields of education and industry. It's like, what does the future look like? Like, there are robots, there are things that we don't even, you know what I'm saying? Like, the future is very different than, like Kyron mentioned, the future is very different than the present, and it's way different than the past. So I think we have to start having conversations in both directions. Like, hey, how do we make the future accessible to the older generations without doing the ageism stuff? And then the reverse, again, how do we learn things from the past without the whole ageism situation? Because, you know, we're all here to learn from each other, right? And I think you all hold a wealth of knowledge that we don't have. And that's just clear to us, you know, that's why we're here. We're like, hey, we know things, but we don't know everything, you know.
And because we're such an analytical society, it's all in the data. I think it's important to talk to these different generations and also gather that data, and then we can, of course, like Vanya said, now we know the approach. Now we know how to get a group together that knows how to sew and hem pants. You know, now we know who needs what, because you won't know unless you speak up about it. So a lot of us, we just kind of go on a day-to-day basis, and we're not really speaking up about what it is that we don't understand or that we don't want to understand. Because a lot of times it's just like, nah, I'm good doing it the old way. And sometimes it's like, there are newer ways, and there actually are more efficient ways of doing things. So it's also a good thing to gather that data and to figure out what works for who. Because it could be the old and it could be the new. So
I wanted to say real quick too, to pick off of what they were talking about conversations. I think we should create like safe spaces as well. So yeah, that's all I wanted to say.
Thank you. Anybody else on the panel want to touch that one?
Kind of hinging off of what Jade said, we need to be willing to understand that we need to meet each other where we are when it comes to learning styles. The older generation and the younger generation have different learning styles. And even within the younger generation, there are a lot of different learning styles. Like, I work in the high school, and the things that I have experienced and that have shaped my learning are completely different than the things that these kids that are in high school have experienced. For example, all of them have just spent the last 3 years growing up in COVID, and that's something that none of us had the same experience of understanding. And so a lot of the approaches that we are taking when we're trying to build relationships with this generation is the same approaches that we've taken to try and build relationships with each other. And it's not working because of the experience that they have had over this past 3 years. A lot of these kids were at home by themselves while their parents were working, so now they think that they're grown, but they also weren't in school for the past 3 years, so they don't have the soft skills and knowledge that you would have learned. For example, the kids who just were in middle school the past 3 years that COVID took place. You know, when we're in middle school, that's where we have the experiences that shape what we'll do when we're in high school. I'm pretty sure everyone gets in trouble when they're in middle school, and that is the time where you make the decision whether you're gonna follow that path or switch to a different path. Whereas these kids didn't have that experience, and so now we have a lot of freshmen in high school that didn't get that experience, and now they're in the big pond. They're in there with students that are 17 and 18 years old, and so we need to be willing to meet each other at and understand that there are different learning styles and try and learn those learning styles so that we can better communicate with each other.
Thank you. That was wonderful. Let's move on to the second question. Question 2 is, can you feel the generation gap between yourself and the older or younger generations? And when is that age gap beneficial and when is it a hindrance? And we're going to start from tonight.
I do feel the generation gap between myself and the older generation. I feel like sometimes whenever I conversate with like my grandparents, or not even just my grandparents, but just anybody in the older generation, I feel like we have like different beliefs and different perspectives on where we see things, and a lot of times that creates like a barrier and it leads to misunderstanding and miscommunication. So it's like, I don't know, sometimes I just want to question like, how can I create that safe space or have how can I create a conversation where we both understand where we're coming from without feeling like judged or anything?
I definitely feel the gap depending on what generation we're talking about. Typically, because I'm Gen Z, right? When it comes to like millennials and like my mother's generation is Generation X, things go by pretty well. I'd also say that me growing up primarily being around just adults, I grew up really pretty much around, like my mom was like the youngest adult I was around. So like, you know, everybody else was definitely from the boomer ages, tried and true, black, southern, very traditional, this is how they do things, this is how it works. So from my upbringing, it made it a lot more easier to navigate talking to older people. I know all the formalities, the yes ma'ams, the no ma'ams, very polite, the rush to open the door, all the respectability things. And it serves me good. However, sometimes it makes it feel like I can't be as genuine or authentic as I'd like to be. I also have worked in education. I worked with young people and Generation Alpha. And with this generation, I'm so excited to see what kind of adults they become. And you know, a lot of people look at them with disdain and you know, get like a headache just thinking about Generation Alpha. But what I see is a generation of young people who have not yet been shot down. They haven't been shot down, they don't understand, or sometimes they don't care to understand the respectability politics, the being PC about things, and what works with them best is oftentimes me just being real, you know, just being authentic. And so I noticed that I want to make sure I touch on. It's beneficial when I am with the younger generation because I can be myself, right? I don't have to be taken seriously. They already take me serious first off because I'm an adult. But I also don't have to prove myself in a sense. I can be very much myself and I don't have to use any of the tactics that like older generation will when it comes to like disciplining or letting them know that I'm disappointed. You know, I don't have to raise my voice or anything. I can connect to them and be like, you know, that's not very cool of you to do that. And they'd be like, what do you mean? And I'd be like, okay, let's unpack that and stuff like that. You know, like I can be very real that I feel like I don't often get to be as real with older generations, especially because a lot of times when I try to be authentic, it's like I meet that wall, and that's where like that disadvantage comes because you can just, it's like, I feel like especially with us young black people, we can tell when we talking to an elder and we hit a wall and all of a sudden, I don't know, me raising my hand. Okay, you can tell when you meet in a wall, when you're talking to an elder and you meet that wall and all of a sudden you can see in the body language and the shift that they not gonna listen to anything else that you're about to say afterwards. That's discouraging. discouraging. That's real discouraging. You know, it's kind of hard and it's kind of like, oh, okay, so you clocked out of the conversation. So that's when it's a disadvantage. You know, when you see the pursed lips and the black mama look. I know a lot of y'all know what I'm talking about. I'm just saying, but it's that look of just kind of like, you lost me, or like, when you can see that they're formulating a response rather than like, just, listening. And I feel like with the younger generation, I don't get that. Or they'll straight up, I had students this summer, they straight up tell me, Miss Kyron, you're talking a lot. And I'm like, uh-oh. But I needed to hear it, right? So, yeah, it's definitely interesting. And especially with, like I said, the younger generation, I'm very interested to see where that goes, because they'll just say it. They'll just say it. It comes to mind and they just say that. And a lot of people will see that as disrespect. But personally, I love it and I look forward to it because we need more of that.
Definitely. Yeah, so I think there's a gap between, obviously, every generation is a little bit different. I think probably the biggest thing is like the way that we get information. I think a lot of older people probably aren't using Twitter, Instagram, and I know younger people are not picking up newspapers and reading those. But beyond that, I think the bigger gap and the more impactful gap is the wealthy and the non-wealthy. The people, the wealth gap, I feel like there's people who have been in positions of power, have had resources, their parents had resources, and they've been building, businesses, family wealth for a long time. And then you have people who just really grew up in the trenches, right? People who, grew up on food stamps, parents on food stamps, family in and out of jail and things like that. So I think it's the bigger issue to me is how can we bridge that gap? How can we take our people who are really struggling, can't figure out how to get ahead, don't know how to make a business, don't know how to create wealth, and how can we bridge that gap? Because I can talk to old people, and I know younger and old people, like, we're gonna figure out how to communicate one way or another, right? We're all humans. But it's really like these resources, figuring out how to get ahead. I think that's a bigger thing. We gotta level the playing field a little bit and make sure that everybody has an equal chance, I think.
I totally agree with Brother Devon. I think when we talk about age, we have to start talking about, sadly, money, but actually talk about the wealth gap. Instead, most of our older peers have gotten the opportunity to build this wealth or pass things down if they did things right within their generation. So totally agree with that. I want to also say, I guess to answer the question, I associate the word gap with maybe negativity. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I feel it and it's not a good thing, that's probably why I'm feeling it. So most of the time, from what Kyron said, when it comes to the younger generation, kids younger than me or around my age, there's a lot of collaboration going on. There's a lot of active listening. Younger kids just want to feel heard. They want to know you speak the same language too, which is where the skill of code switching comes in. If kids feel like when you're talking to them, you're talking at them and not with them, then you've probably lost them already. As far as the older gen, I already spoke on this experience, that it's half and half. I've ran into amazing generations within the boomer realm or just older than me period who have taught me so much, and I feel like I've been blessed as a millennial. I think millennials have this gift to be able to see the future but take what they've learned from the past and apply it in the present. We get to say, hey, this was happening at this time, and then we also get to look to the future and say, hey, this is gonna happen, as V said. So that's how I would answer that question. I guess I just really want the gatekeeping vibe and I have no aversion to working for anything. I don't think anybody younger has an aversion to working for things, but now we're in this point where there is something in the way that is stopping that work. It used to be if you work hard, you can achieve it and you get it. We are seeing a lot of people my age and younger who are understanding that working hard now doesn't really get you the reward you were told you would get. Bachelor's degrees offering $47K is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. I know people who 60 should be the minimum. 60K minimum for a bachelor's, minimum. And now we're having kids who are like, I don't want to go to school because what I can start my own business and make 47K a year. What am I going to sit and waste my time for at college just to sit in front of an older person who's making me go through hell in this interview because they're like, hey, you don't look the part for this job, so we're cool on you for this 47K position that you got all dressed up and spoofed up for, and we were vetting you the whole time, but we don't want you though. You know what I'm saying? Or there's I don't want to tell anybody business, but I just know so many people who are going through that right now, and education is a hard seller for a lot of the young folks I deal with at the moment, because they're getting on Indeed in high school, and they're like, let me see what this looks like, and they're like, man, 47K sounds like a lot, and I gotta break it down and be like, hey man, I have one of those, and it's not. So that's how I'm gonna answer that.
And I have to agree with what James just said. It's not only the work itself, but it's how we approach the work. And I think that the way that we approach the work is because we see what that work can get you. So we see that we've been taught growing up that if you go to college, you're going to be successful, you're going to be able to get the house that you want, you're going to be able to afford the lifestyle that you want. And then we have come into this social media generation where we have seen more than what's in our own city. And we have seen people who have had opportunities to make money without that same type of education. And so there is a difference in how we work for what we want. Traditionally, generations have been taught this is the way to do it, this is a straightforward path, and we're starting to see that there's multiple paths to success, and success doesn't look the same for everybody. And I think that that is the biggest generational gap that I see today, because the way that we approach it and the way that we understand that success doesn't look the same for everybody, we get called lazy, we get called underachieving, people think that we don't want to be successful, and really success just may not look the same to me as it does to somebody that's 40 years older than me, because we have been exposed to so many more different paths and different opportunities, and I think that traditionally there was only one way to do it, and now there's multiple ways to do it, and people don't understand that. They're from older generations that may not have been exposed to all of the different opportunities that are available to us now, and I might not even say now, just with social media, the wide known availability of what is out there has just extremely been broadened.
I'm not even sure who mentioned we don't read newspapers, because we don't, okay? But no, because my main source of knowledge is social media, preferably Twitter, and I'll say this because it's how you use it, and I think that everyone thinks that maybe our parents or our elders think that when we're on social media, we're just having a ball and fun, and we're like dumbing ourselves down. We are. Some of us are. Then some of us, we see stuff and then we're actually like, like something's clicked and we're like, wow, oh, that's happening, or this is going on, or wow, like they get money like this, or wow, like I don't have to just do this. And I think me being in college and seeing people like make money in different ways and things like that, and they weren't doing what I was doing, in a way, because it took me a minute, okay? I was in school for 7 years, but I got my degree. But it took me a minute, and I honestly didn't think that I could do anything else. And I'm very multifaceted, just like everybody up here, very multifaceted. I believe in myself, I know I can do things, but it's how to monetize. And I think also like working with how to monetize things and working with the older generation and seeing how they put their hard labor and all their skill sets to use and then learning how to monetize all that, working together and doing all that, that'll help us. But like I said before, it's all about saying, saying like, oh, I don't understand, or I don't know. And not even just from us, but from the older generation. I would love if an older person came to me and said, you know what, can you tell me how to, instead of being like, that's not how I do it. Okay, well, you know what I'm saying? Like, we're here for a reason. If it wasn't meant for things to be created and change to happen, we wouldn't have different iPhones every year. We wouldn't have different seasons of fashion every year. Change is supposed to happen. We're supposed to accept the new, or at least embrace it. As soon as you don't embrace it, it's a brick wall. Like Kyron said, it's a brick wall, I don't know what to do. Now I'm gonna just go back to doing my own thing. Now I gotta leave y'all in the cold. Now, I would hate to leave the older generation in the cold all because of a language barrier. That's for what? I think it's very easy for us to communicate, and it's more so not as easy for the older generation to listen. Because what we've been raised to know, you listen to your elders. Okay, and I'm with that all the way. I listen to my elders, but I also would really appreciate it if they listen to us. Because we're very, very wise. We're very, very, we're tapped in. We know too much. Okay, so we know too much, but also we know enough that if you see a young person that is actually interested in changing their surroundings, their community, please hold on to that young person, because the majority don't care. The majority are never gonna care. They're just gonna keep bustling through because that's what we learned through COVID. We just bustle through. We just do things just because we gotta keep making money and doing things. And that's not healthy, and it's not something that we'll benefit from. So it's very important to like hone down and say, you know what? I'm ready to learn something new. I'm ready to accept something new. I'm not telling you to change all your behaviors today. I don't want you to do that. However, I do want you to accept the fact that like, it's okay to, learn a little bit and work towards better. Still keep some of the old, but still accept the new. That's all.
Amen. And the church, yeah. So, to answer the question, y'all are fantastic, by the way. Thank you for being here. To be truthful, I do feel the generational gaps, especially in this community, because we live in a very slow-moving community. It's a blessing and a curse, I think. I love the fact that we're not Detroit and we're not New York, and I don't get anxiety walking outside my door, but I also know that my biggest indication of generational gaps is the speed at which we move. So a lot of us up here, we know that the gap between ideation and execution is very short. We don't need a bunch of time to think about stuff. We don't need a bunch of time to, think of if something's gonna work. We're like a try and fail generation. We're like, we wanna try. It doesn't matter what it is, we're gonna throw spaghetti at the wall and try it. Why? Because we grew up at the turn of the century, most of us, and we got that smack of information. Like Jade said, we know way too much. We know all of the stories. We know all of the Steve Jobs stories and all the other stuff. So yeah, I think it's just the speed, and we move faster. And that's okay. It doesn't mean that we're not considering y'all and not considering things. We're not being reckless. This is the pace at which things move now. Just wanted to say that.
I also kind of wanted to add to that real quick. It really, when you said that, like we kind of just will throw the spaghetti at the wall and just figure it out. I feel like that's another reason why when like young people come together with a collective effort, like things happen like that with the younger generations. I've noticed like a lot of times when you come in a room with like the older generation, they want to know who referred you. Well, what have you done? What's your qualifications? With younger people, it's a lot much easier to organize. It's like, hey, I'm good at reaching out and getting people to do stuff, and it's like, great, fine. We don't need a background check. We don't need to ask somebody. We don't think, well, they got their degree from here or they don't have a degree. Like, nah, like we'll get together in a space and like all those titles, who I worked with, what I did, this is my position, kind of just like falls at the door. Well, more organically than I see in rooms where there's older people in it. And so that's definitely something, if we're talking about like bridging the gap and stuff like that, that has to happen where we have like, okay, you may not know me, you may not be able to verify that I've done this or that or the third, but just trust that I am showing up, I am present, I have done the work, and I will continue to do the work. Because I feel like a lot of times we have these conversations in the community and they fall flat because, okay, we've taken everybody's email out at the door, but who's actually reaching out? Or do you need to hear from somebody else? You need somebody to connect me to you to reach out. But if you see that I'm present each time, then obviously I might have something to offer. But if you don't give me the chance because I can't read you off a list of what you've done, I've done a lot of stuff. It won't come to mind if I'm in a room. I hate to say it. I need to start carrying a little cue card that's like, oh, I've worked with this organization, this, that, and the third. I've been working with organizations since the age of 5. And I'm not just talking about my mom dragging me around and, you know, right, you know, shout out to you. But like, I've been doing work since 5, making decisions of where to put money and efforts in this community since the age of 5. Now, if somebody asked me to list off that sheet of, oh, what all you've done, I can't name it. Why? Because I just show up. I'm not waiting on anybody to tell me, oh, we need somebody to this, that, and the third. I show up and I put in work. And I don't say that to get a pat on the back or anything, which I feel like I also see from the older generation a lot. It's very much of, well, I've done this and I've done that, and it becomes like a competition. I don't feel the need to compete. If I feel like I have something to contribute, a skill or the resources or just knowing someone, I'm going to contribute. I don't need my name attached. It's good. I'm not saying that, you know, getting your props isn't necessary, because it definitely is, but I'm saying that it hinders us when we keep people out from doing stuff because we don't feel like they meet the old traditional standards of what qualifies a person to do something.
I also just wanted to say in that same light that us questioning things and wanting to dismantle things and to break them and to change them is not disrespect. I just wanted to put that out there. It's not disrespect. It may feel disrespectful to you. Our thought processes may feel disrespectful to you. Us doing things similarly but a little bit different may feel disrespectful to you, but it's not about respect. We hold reverence for our elders, as most of us have said already. Like, that's who we were raised to be, and a lot of us have had examples, like Bonica, parents, Ms. Bolden up there, like, that have set the path for us to understand what it is to kind of invest in a young person, in a young leader, and in your child. So I guess I just wanted to say that, like, we're gonna have things that come up that buck against your belief system, your thoughts, your imagination, everything. And it's gonna feel uncomfortable. So just keep that in mind when you're talking to anyone really. Because it's not necessarily about right and wrong, it's about perspective. And understanding that the shape is actually spherical. The earth is round. We are not flat earthers in here, I don't think.
Thank you. So what I'm hearing is you want to help. We need to help. My generation, your generation, they're asking to be brought to the table, and they're saying, we want to work with you to create a better community for the people that are coming behind them, for their children, for their grandchildren. And I've learned from a lot of the young people on this panel, and that's one of the reasons why they're here. They're inspirational, and they have ideas. And one thing I felt like I did as a parent was, if my child had something to say, I made sure I made space for that. And that's another thing we have to do. We have to make space for our young people. Ms. LeGrand Williams over there makes space for young people to say their ideas and to speak their mind and to be heard. That's important. Pastor French makes space for people to be heard. Did you have extra to add on to this one, Ellie? Or are we moving to number 3? Okay. Question number 3. And then after question number 3, we're going to go into the audience for some
I'm
questions.
sorry, I did. I can't let it go. And you were saying something around this idea of tapping in. How can we tap in? I think it's very important. And you may not be able to get the details, and maybe some others of you all want to share, but I think it's important that we learn the possibilities of how to tap in.
I just want to say real quick, like if you're asking about tapping into the things that we're doing, or like what are we talking about? Or just us in general, or?
I think it's a combination of tapping into the things that you're doing, tapping into your leadership, and also tapping into your knowledge set. I think you all touched a little bit on it, but I wanted to double click on that.
Yeah, I feel like for those of you who are in positions of power, you're executive directors, you're on boards, you are very involved in the community. I see a lot of your faces out here. I think advocacy is like the biggest thing that will be beneficial to us. I always encourage when people go into meetings, take someone young with you to your meeting. Like the knowledge, it's like all of those things happen in silos. All of your amazing conversations with your peers happen in silos. What if I tagged along with you? What if Kyron tagged along with you? What if any of us went with you and just listened? You know what I'm saying? Like, I always encourage, you know, people even our age to take a younger person with you in those spaces, so that even if they do have questions, and then make space for them to talk to you about it. I think that's like a huge thing. Like, and as far as like tapping in with what we're doing, I hate to sound like this, but like, you gotta get on social media. Like, you have to. Like, outside of personal conversations, which are nice, a lot of our work exists in that realm. A lot of our resume, a lot of the work that we do exists on social media. The way that you can engage with it, the way that you can see it, the way that you can, you know, give us feedback, like all of that exists in that realm. So, you know, I know there's some information about resources and things like that all over the web, but I think just following us, being friends with us on Facebook, it's that easy, really. Like, getting our phone number, texting us, it's that easy. Like, it's not difficult. Like, we're here. We're actually in y'all's face all the time. Like, I think we just smell like millennials and Gen Z, so we don't get a lot of attention. But all right, I'm gonna stop rambling.
When I mentioned being tapped in, I think it came from, we're tapped into the whole knowledge is power. So we know so much, whether we were exposed to it beyond if we wanted to be exposed to it or not, or whether we tapped in to know or find out more about what we were hearing or seeing. But ignorance is bliss, and the older generation would like to live in that space. Ignorance is bliss. I'd rather not know. And I understand that, because sometimes I find out stuff, I'm like, dang, like, I gotta change how I'm looking at stuff, you know? And that's like a whole thing where it's like, you have to be the determining factor of what is personal growth for me? What does that look like at 55 years old? What does it look like at 70? I ain't telling you to change the fact that you make your toast and eggs in the morning. That's not what we asking. It's more so being accepting of that. Most of the older generation has grandchildren, great-grands, things like that. So in having that, it's pertinent to reach out to those grandchildren and stuff like that. And even if they may seem a little off, still listen. Because when you listen, then you can kind of make your own perception in your own way, but at least you're listening, at least you're being vigilant, and at least you're like tapped in to what's going on. You know enough. Okay, I heard about that. I know about that. Or I saw something about that the other day. Okay, so I love when I hear that from the older generation. Like, oh, you be out there looking at that. Like, I love that. So it's more so just being willing to know more, even if it's something that like literally stabs your belief system, bruises your belief system. I'm not telling you to change it, but I'm telling you to at least look at it and say, oh, it's different, and that's okay.
I want to say something real quick. I'm so sorry. Like, Jay just, she tickled a very special place in my mind. I feel that a huge thing, because this question comes around a lot. Like, how do we help? The gender divide, the pay gap. Like people are like, well, how do we help? I think a big thing that just popped into my head is a lot of the people in this room are already doing the things that we're asking for, right? The people outside of this room need to be held accountable by y'all. Yeah, so I think that, just as we go out into our communities and we're talking to people our age and we're like, hey, put that down, you know what I'm saying? Or, we're holding each other accountable. I think the same applies to everyone else. When you're speaking to your peers, advocate for them to do these activities that you guys are already doing. Push them, help them bruise them a little bit, you know what I'm saying? Because it's not necessarily our job to do that. It's our job to exist and to ask questions and to, usher in this new vision of the future. But at some point, y'all have to be shields for us. You have been for a long time, but also in the realm of accountability, being a shield for us as well.
Real quick, I'm sorry. I want to pick out what V said about advocacy. Yes, bring the young people out. Bring the young people to meetings. Bring the young people to the events that we have in the community. Like with me being on student rep at KCC, I'm the youngest one there. And it's like, they want to hear what I have to say. They want to hear like what students have to say with me being a student. But it's like, this is why we create our own table, is because we feel like we don't have a seat at your table. And they're like they're not as comfortable with that. And that's why, like with me being involved with how I'm involved now, I had participated in like a demand a seat event that they had towards like gun violence. And I just feel like we shouldn't have to really keep, like, I don't know how I'm trying to word it. I'm sorry. Never mind that. But this is why we create our own table. And if you're not comfortable, then I just feel like that's on you.
Also, just to add really quickly, reaching out is a big thing. Just send a text or email. Well, emails get lost. Let me be real. I got like 10,000 emails right now. But send a text, a call. I would love for somebody older to be like, you know what? I love brunch. Ask me to go to Claire's brunch with you and sit down and pick my brain. That is the fastest yes anybody could get out of me. Okay. So just ask me. You want to go to Cafe Rica? I love me some Cafe Rica. Let's sit and chat. And ask me, okay, you can ask any of us really, what's their views on this? Where do you think this is heading? Pick our brains. We have these opinions. We're very opinionated. Pick our brains. Ask us, what could I be doing? There's that level of...
Not for free.
That too. If it's for sure. Because if it's anything related to any type of work, I'm on the clock for sure. But definitely not for free. But if it is, I know me personally, not speaking for everybody, me personally, I'll have a conversation for free. It depends on how much intellectual labor will go behind it. But if somebody in this room wanted to catch up and just what does Kyra got going on? What does she think on certain stuff? I have the time. Not all of us do, but I know I do for sure. And hear from, you know, and just have a genuine conversation on, like, you know, where do you see this, where do you see that? A lot of us, like I said, we got a lot of opinions, and then with to point out what V has said about like that allyship, right? You're in a space, if you're in a space and you're meeting about something community-wise and there is nobody under the age of 35, you should be very worried. It is a problem. It's a huge problem. And we're not in these spaces to push back and say, hey, where are we at? We want to sit at the table. So like, just by going into these spaces to say, okay, what are we going to do to make sure we're more inclusive to our 35 and under, right? And even if it could be something that's for a community center, any type of organizational effort, even a church effort, where is that intentional, has to be an intentional effort on y'all part to say, we need people under 35. And if you don't know how to go about it, ask your children, ask your grandchildren, use social media as an avenue to find people, because there's for sure going to be people interested. But, you know, if we're not at the table to ask for a seat or to how to be able to advocate for ourselves, then y'all got to advocate for us. Not speak for us, but on behalf, and say we intentionally have to make sure that each of these meetings, each of these spaces have somebody under the age of 35.
Thank you. And I think you guys have actually answered the third question. Like, this has been a very robust conversation, and I appreciate the vulnerability that it takes to sit in front of a different generation or two different generations and to be honest and to be real. So I want to give you a hand for that, because that is a lot, and we appreciate the value. So what we're going to do right now is we're going to take a couple questions from the audience. And just a reminder, none of this is personal. You have something? Hold on. No. Y'all answer all of it. Yeah. You have something? Okay, hold on 1 second. Sorry.
My bad, I didn't know we were doing the third. I love what everybody said. I just wanted to piggyback because I feel like these things were necessary. So to answer the third, one, I just want to point out a sore thumb that I feel like black folks are very disorganized as a conglomerate. Here's why I feel that way. The Burmese have the Burma Center. Latin folks have VOCES. There is no successful together vibe when I talk about black folks, like one place to guaranteed go. And I don't feel like those places shake hands. I think we have many places, but I don't feel like we are shaking hands and talking to each other enough. I've been in these rooms with the Burma Center. I know what it looks like. I've been in rooms with VOCES. I know what it looks like. I see many different black orgs. It's like 4 of them. And I just wish they'd all talk more, shake hands with each other more, and unite as a conglomerate more on some missions. It doesn't have to be everything, but some mission statements. I see amazing things from New Level. I see Rise doing his thing. The Urban League is in the air to me. And there might be another I'm forgetting. NAACP, and that's up in the air to me. I haven't seen the NAACP feel like the NAACP until a black person died. And that was the last time, and that was part of that, was Trayvon Martin, maybe. We had the whole city shut down. There was a huge protest. We were all outside. We were all marching with that one. We all had our signs up with that one. So that's my touch on the generational gap in that form. Stop hating. And this is the advocacy part, if there's a older folk next to you, even a younger folk, and somebody's doing something, they're doing something, and somebody is trying to get in the way of that, they are stopping that. Critiquing is fine. Critiquing we can learn from, we can do something with critique. Constructive criticism is fine. I even hate the constructive part of that. Criticism is fine, but just to outright just be trying to tear something down because you don't like it or you don't agree is nothing. That helps nothing. So we got to advocate for each other right there and start holding people accountable, right? Start being like, hey, stop that. Hey, go talk to that person. Hey, communicate. Hey, what are you doing? Hey, that person's building something. What's going on? Intentionally reaching out. I heard that from Kyren. Intentional meaning that this event itself, Bunika, literally, we're all in a group chat. She reached out. We feel important here. We were told that we're necessary. There is value here. It wasn't a, oh yeah, come sit down and we're gonna shoot the thing, and then we never heard from her again. She's like, hey, you coming? Hey, make sure you guys are, hey.
I know where y'all live at, I will pop up.
And she knows where we live at, and she will pop up. Lastly, events. And mobilizing intentionally with events. I don't care about your poster. I need to see, I want to see, and we should be having events. We have these, we have them already. We have staple ones actually. Juneteenth is awesome. Lila is awesome. Black Sheep's done its fair share. I know Devon has put on events that I've seen a lot of engagement at. I know Third Coast has put together events that I've seen engagement at. Events, and working together with people to all come together to be at those things. So that's where the young folks gonna be at. And if you're looking for youth mobilization, that's the fee that a lot of people are talking about. I've had a lot of people come up to me and be like, hey man, I want you to get people 30, 25, 18 and up, or 35 and under, or whatever here. And they're like, I got $200 for you, what's up? And I'm like, you know, the me at 25 would have said yes to you 1,000 times, and even at 18, but a wise woman told me if you're good at something, at some point you stop doing it for free.
Oh.
So, that was the opinion. Man, you guys could get me to do something for a nickel when it came to just getting people together, and I think that's still important. I think we should shake hands and collaborate sometimes without talking about monetary value and gains. We should just come together and get it done. I do that still. You know, I put together events all the time where it's cost me thousands, and I pay the people that work with me too, and I've gotten nothing from that. So I get it. But at the end of the day, those things.
All right.
So in the interest of time, we know that the weather's cold, but I don't know if I've ever been in a room with these many younger leaders at the same time. So I want to give us the opportunity to at least ask a clarifying question as participants in the audience. But before I do that, in the interest of time, if the panelists, if you wouldn't mind, just taking, I guess the mic doesn't like me, taking 1 minute to answer the third question. I know we said we were going to skip over, but I know that you all prepared answers. So if you can just answer the third question in 1 minute each, and then we can take 1 or 2 questions from the audience. Would you like to state the questions?
Okay, question 3, how do you bridge the communication gaps between generations? And I think a lot of that was talked about this evening. If anybody has anything extra to add to it.
So basically the answers that my peers just gave before me, I agree with both of those answers. But if I had to add something to it, I would say drop the egos. In our community, there is a big hindrance because there are a lot of people who have egos, particularly in the older generation. We don't see that as much as in our generation. We're willing to drop the titles and drop what we have to prove for ourselves. We don't feel like we have anything to prove when we're working for a common goal. Whereas when we're partnering with people in the older generation, they want to have this, I did this moment. They want to be able to say, this is my resume, I did this, this, and this, and now give me my bench. And we don't necessarily care about that. We're not here for the accolades. We're here to actually impact change and make the world different. And I think that that is one thing that we could work on, is dropping those egos so that we can actually get real work done instead of just trying to put our name on something so we can say, I did it, I was here, I showed up, I had my hand in it, and not actually making impact.
And I would just like to throw into that. So I am a racial healing coordinator. I'm gonna drop a title, but it has a point. I'm the racial healing coordinator for Battle Creek TRHT, and I teach the relationship building aspect of it. So that was my main focus, because how we speak to one another and how we show up in a space makes a difference on how we are received. So Janasia was speaking, and a lot of times people do shut down, and just had a whole senior moment at 44. But, what did you just say? Yes, okay, so one of the main things when you come into one of our racial healing circles and I'm leading, you drop your title. There's no title. When we sit down to build a relationship, we drop titles, we drop the education, we take all that off the table, and you come to the table as Devon, and I come to the table as Bonika, and we sit down and we talk about what needs to be talked about. And so at the point where you drop that title, or your resume, you drop it and leave it off the table, and you say, hey, what do we need to do so we can come together and work together? That's how we start building relationships, because then there's no ego to be dealt with. There's no attitude, there's no ego, it's just genuine conversation, and you're more likely to get an authentic, real conversation than you are to meet that wall that they were talking about. So yes, so I have some time for some questions, and if we can get a couple extra, if y'all promise to hurry up and get out of here when I say get out, because we gotta be out. Anybody got a question? Don't be shy.
Hello, everybody. Hola, my name is Michelle. I just want to thank everybody on the panel for being here, because it's really important that you guys are here. I feel very nourished and listening to all of your wisdom and like your experiences. For me today, what resonated for me on like Martin Luther King Day and just like hearing you guys speak as like youth was, I just reflect on all the times that I was impacted and motivated to do something that was around social justice, that was around women's rights, civil rights, and like immigration rights. And I'm just wondering kind of how you guys, as like the panel here today, can help me understand this frustration that I have with when I reflect on like today, like Martin Luther King Day, we see like the civil rights movements being like big, right? Like the I Have a Dream speech happened on Washington D.C.'s like in front of the Lincoln Memorial with hundreds of thousands of people. The bus boycott happened with like hundreds of thousands of people across the country, like all of that, you know. And so today I just feel, thank you. Today I just feel like, because of social media, which is something that you guys touched on today, because of this like pride, ego, of like people wanting recognition solely for themselves, or like a collaborative group of people pushing an agenda and like not wanting other people to get recognition for something that they catered. And because our generational gap, our ancestors in this country, in America, made pathways for us. I count myself, I just turned 30 this year, but I count myself as a youth still, made pathways to make me feel like I can show up in spaces and demand advocacy for my youth here, or for myself, or for people who look like me, or for people who you know, our women are black. And so what is the equivalence of social justice movements back then that we can lean on for today and our future, I guess, that you guys see as being just as influential and as historical? I know like every day we can see ourselves doing monumental things, but we still very much need, like 3 years ago we saw George Floyd die at the hands of a police officer, and did he really get justice? Did the black community really get justice, right? So what are we doing today that is as, I guess, like powerful as Martin Luther King, as Malcolm X, as what is that? Rosa Parks.
So one thing I feel, okay. So something I feel like that in the civil rights movement that we can lean on and should be leaning on is their ability to strategize. A lot of times we look at pictures of them back in the day and we think they're old because the pictures are in black and white and they're wearing suits. Martin Luther King Jr., Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., he was in his 20s out here. You know, yeah, just had to put his title out there, but like he was in his 20s. They were very young. Malcolm X was in his 20s. They were our age, the ages we are now, they were our ages and even younger doing work. And I feel like a lot of that was because of strategy, and I feel like because they had just sheer numbers, right? Everything was strategic in the civil rights movement. It might be like, oh, you know, they're just doing a sit-in. These sit-ins were planned months before and often happened in college dorms, on campus, you know, at young people like hangouts. Like Fred Hampton, he was assassinated at 22. I didn't realize that for years because, like I said, a lot of times we look at the pictures and a lot of times they're left strategically in black and white, so we don't associate them with modern day. But they were all our age, and I feel like really it just comes with strategy and like a collective effort. Like James was saying, a lot of times with the black community, we don't have just a singular, okay, this is who we go to when we want to reach out to black people, like we see in the Latinx community, like we see in the Asian community. And I feel like if we were to just able to have like that collective effort and be able to unify, I feel like that's what made it so impactful. It's because it looked organic, yet it was centered around very young leaders, and they were, because a lot of times they had to, at the times, of course, because they were able to speak a certain way and do things a certain way, they were still, a lot of them, their elders were looking at them and saying like, you know, they're moving too fast, they're doing too much, I don't like those tactics. But like I said, it's really numbers and collective force, being in agreement, or at least even if they don't get the agreement, just still coming together and being able to go out. Like the NAACP used to be like primarily young people. We don't see that now, right? I can't name an organization where it's just primarily young people doing something.
And so the key point in that is that the young people were leading the movement and everybody didn't agree, but if you look at those pictures and you look at the marches, the generations behind were with them. They had the support. They led the movement, and we, the parents and grandparents, were behind them because we knew we benefited from the same thing they were trying to do. Anybody else want to touch on that one for 1 minute?
And in addition to that, I just want to say that history is happening right now, and we may not realize how big it is right now. For example, with me and my own personal thing, I'm the youngest elected city commissioner in the history of Battle Creek. But that doesn't feel like a big thing.
That's a huge thing.
And it is, and I know that when I think about it objectively, but day to day as I'm moving through life, this is just the work that God has told me to do. So it feels normal to me. Whereas I can put that on a larger scale, the protests that we're having now, the decisions and the impact that we're making to our future, they don't feel like they're big things right now, but when we look back 20, 30 years from now, we will be the people that kids are learning about in their history books. The people that are in history books right now, they didn't think that they were going to be in history books. They thought that they were doing the work that was important to them. And so that's all I can say, that this is history right now. Like, we are Black history, we are history right now, even though it doesn't necessarily feel like it. When we look back, we'll see the impact that we made to better our community.
To address the social media disparity, because I too get irritated by that, and I asked this question to myself. It's social media. When you scroll, you clicked on the video, you saw 7,000 plus people in LA all down the block. You feel like you were there, and you feel like that's enough. Nowadays, you're like, oh, they already took care of that. How are we gonna beat that in Battle Creek? They had 10,000 people down the block. It's on social media, it's on Twitter, everybody's retweeting it. Jade retweeted it, that means Battle Creek are seeing it, you know, we saw it. America gets it, we're mad. And we're also not mad enough anymore. And that might be, so to speak, that we've accomplished a lot and we've gotten a lot of things that we are continuing to fight for and have fought for. So when the Black anger is building up again though, and not just Black women's anger, POC anger, it's building up again because more and more stuff is going on, and it takes mad people. And I think, to speak to MLK, his talent was taking said mad people and teaching an ideology to put a reverse psychology on the oppressor and help them understand there is a peaceful way to attack this issue at hand. And it confused the hell out of oppressors because they were like, damn, we wanted you guys to come here and tear shit up, and you're not, so you're within the law, and now you're here, and we can't just do this without making you look bad. Sorry, 1 minute, cool. Those are my thoughts.
Excuse us, Lord. Oh, sorry, just before, disunity is the problem. That's all I wanted to say. Like, we're very not unified as a country, as a people. Our ethnicities are disjointed. Like, we don't know how to do those amazing things that MLK did and Malcolm X did. Why? Because we have a disunity problem. We have a mobilization problem in this country, and it's simply because of the exaltation of the individual mindset. We don't have collective mind anymore.
Or it's like the smoke and mirrors act of like, well, the Latinx people have their own issues, the Black people have their own issues, the LGBTQ people have their own issues, and women have their own issues. So like, don't worry about each other's issues. You guys worry about your issues. Exactly. And don't come together. Exactly.
Yeah.
And that is the opposite of unity.
Right.
All right, we're gonna take 2 more questions.
Great, thank you. So first I wanted to say is this is progress. So everyone in this room, everyone in this room is part of what progress is. Being that I'm from Battle Creek, what's going on? Yeah. So I've been doing work here in Battle Creek. Some work still. You're efficient. Cool. So I've been doing work here at Battle Creek since, I don't know, man, 95. I've been part of a lot of programs here, Cool People Community Savers since as far back as I can remember. I was even at the higher learning program that we had here. It was heavy in the community. It was at the church, and it was at the early 2000s. The early 2000s. So like right now, this group of people that we have here, older and younger, we got some 60s, some 50s, some 40s, some 30s, and some 20s. And the thing that I enjoy most about being around as a millennial between all of this is I can actually see the progress. And I was around at a time when this type of meeting wouldn't take place. You know, so this is a form of progress of its own. And just having Pastor French here doing what she's been doing in the community as far as the trail, as far as getting some of these homes pushed out in the community to help some less fortunate individuals to home ownership. That's the most progress I've seen here, I want to say, since probably about 20 years. And a few of my friends here who've been here long, they can vouch for that as well. But the only real disconnect that I continue to keep seeing, it isn't so much as that older people don't understand, it's what it is. we need to have more meetings of the minds where we can come to a better understanding that I understand you, but you understand me. That's why history is so important. And you learn history so history doesn't repeat itself. So when you think of people like Marcus Garvey, Fred Hampton, Martin Luther King, and if you read your history books and you saw the movies, then you know that it was the young people that supported them. And it was the famous actors, athletes, and musicians who funded their operations. The majority of that was just the friends and the collaborations and networking that they've made. And they utilize those friendships and networkings to their advantage. The cool part about this generation is they have social media where they could meet and spark the interest of their famous celebrities or not. So they could meet like let's say, who do they listen to? Uzi Vert. You know, you can inbox Uzi Vert. I couldn't inbox Jay-Z or nobody in my generation if I wanted help, reached out to any of those people. That's the cool thing. Like, you guys can organize a post about this community and how it's important to you, and you get 300 of your friends to tag that celebrity, and eventually that celebrity is going to see it. You know, it's all in social media marketing and how you use your social media to your advantage. But as far as like understanding older people and younger people, the disconnect isn't that. It's just we just got to really understand who we are, what our intentions are, and where we tend to go with it. But I like this. And I'm going to continue to keep coming to these meetings we're going to have.
Coming to the other side, there will be more meetings, and there will be work, and you will be included.
Come on this way, because he said that distance is what gives the static in the microphone. I just wanted to say to our young panelists, there are opportunities, even though I heard someone say about dismantling systems that are in place, but until you can dismantle those systems, sometimes you have to be a part of the system. And there are opportunities to serve in this community, especially the NPC2. We meet the second Monday of every month. And then there are opportunities to even serve on the board here at Washington Heights. And I don't know if you know about those opportunities, but those are opportunities for you to have your voice heard and to make sure change happens in this community.
Oh, we have one more, and this is a younger person, so we're going to have to make that happen. But we're going to go home together in 2 minutes. As soon as he's done, and we'll hear from our panelists.
My question is if we could just time travel into the future and see what this, well, my question to the panel is, we could time travel into the future, what would this look like for us? What would bridging the gap with the older generation and the newer generation look like for us in Battle Creek? Like, what would that look like? If the solution was to manifest in the future, what would that look like for you guys?
That's a great question.
I heard you, man.
Oh, all right.
Oh, I thought I heard you talking.
No, I just said it was a good question.
Sorry.
No, but I'll give my 2 cents because I have 2. I think in my ideal world, generationally, we should be able to move autonomously throughout life without feeling as though the thing that you are born with, which is your age and your placement in the world, isn't a hindrance to what you can accomplish. Make sense? Okay.
So you're saying, you're asking what could be done? I can't say what event it needs to be. I can't say what gathering it needs to be. All I can say is we all need to be there. Yes. It's a small community. And I mean, so if we're all there, then okay, we all heard the same thing. We all experienced the same thing. We all can conglomerate and have our own opinions on that said thing. But because we were all there, we kind of can, I can understand how you felt that way about that, because you were there. Or I can understand how you, because you were there, you know? So, I mean, it takes some kind of gathering, and maybe that's something I have to like think about more, and we can come together more and work on. But yeah, it just takes us being in spaces with everybody.
Okay, I think this mic is working. I would say in the future, what
what it would look like is this will be the generation that will stop telling our children that it is grown folks' business. That divide will not be there with our generation. I know personally, I can't wait to have a mini-me that I just drag along in the same way that my mom did it. Her doing that was just unheard of in itself during the time, right? But I feel like with our generation, we'll definitely be the ones to keep our children in the know and out in the dark and in the conversation and bringing them to spaces, and that emboldens them to feel like they're a part of it, so they never have to work as hard to be a part of it. We will be the generation that stops that and includes them. The space, we won't need to create space because the space already exists. It would just be the difference of we're going to pull them in and we're going to keep them in the know and we're going to keep them in the loop, and that's how I think you keep community going.
I've really enjoyed this. I'm the oldest and openly gay commissioner on the City of Battle Creek. You have your oldest, and I look forward to working with Janesia. She's had more experience on the City Commission than me, and I'm always willing to ask questions and work together. So I'm very happy that you had this forum today to work with. And I look forward to having lunch with you. I'll buy. I take one on in. She wants me to pay for it. No.
Hey,
just easy.
I'm expensive, I'm not gonna lie.
And that's right, nothing wrong. But just thank you all for coming and inviting people different than ourselves. And it just takes a lot that, you know, people think, oh, he's just a white old man, you know? You don't know. You don't know until you stop and talk to me. And so thank you all for being here.
Thank you.
Can we give our panelists another round of applause? Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us. Our goal is to make this the beginning of a conversation. We don't want your words to fall into the air, but we want to go back. We're grateful for Compton Media recording tonight. Want to go back. Yes, thank you. We want to go back, listen, take notes, and move on what you've shared. To that end, please, if you have not signed in, please sign in before you leave. At least we will have your email information so that when we get to part 2 of this conversation, we can let you know what's going on. Thank you so much for being here. There's some snacks left. Get you a snack. And be safe and stay warm. Thank you for being panelists. Thank you for being here.